What's going on? This is the Otisville YouTube channel. This is for a water pump that I did in 2012. Ran 1500 with a Hemi 5.7. The point of this video is to try to make an efficient video. There's so many videos that I looked at that was like a guy trying to hold the phone with his mouth, try to talk. That was like 3 hours long. And I'm trying to skip through there, trying to find just a few things that I really needed to know. So this video is trying to be efficient. Other videos I looked at, like One Auto or something, they would make it a nice, polished, bright, quality video, but then you could see where they stopped and cut, like they couldn't get it off, and you don't know how they got it off. You know, so this is like real life, real tools in your garage. So anyway, if you've never tackled something this big before, this would be a good video because it does right from the setup all the way to the end. If you're more of a motorhead and this isn't your first rodeo, you can just down below in the description, I got timestamps, and you just go down there and you just click what it is you want to know about or what you're trying to find. Click on that, it'll automatically jump to that portion of the video, so you don't have to try to fish through all this. So anyway, it went good on my truck. I think it's going to go well for whoever just goes all the way through the video. So best of luck to you. And let me know if it worked for you and if the video was able to answer any questions for you. Thanks and good luck to you. Probably number one is a step stool of some sort. Unless you're like very tall, this is really going to help you out a lot. Or maybe a 5-gallon bucket or something, because you're going to spend a lot of time leaning over this engine. So I'd get something that you can stand on. First thing you probably want to do is you're going to be working underneath, draining out the liquids, antifreeze. You might as well just lift up the front. If you've got ramps, that's the easiest. And don't forget to chalk your tires just to make sure nothing's moving on you when you're underneath there. Next, you're going to want some sort of tub or something just to catch the antifreeze. That way you can always reuse it if it's in good shape. To drain the antifreeze, on the driver's side is the drain. There's a nut kind of on there. And what I got on here is at least it seems to me, a 17 millimeter. And I'm turning it counterclockwise. Oop. There we go. When you're draining the antifreeze out, it helps to pull the cap off and lets air in. And it helps that to drain a little faster for you. And then I pulled the plug all the way out. It looks like there is like an Allen. I use a 17 millimeter to get this out. Looks like you could use an Allen, but this is what it looks like when you get it out. I'm assuming you could be able to just loosen it and it should come out, but I just pulled the whole thing out. So once you're waiting for that, all the antifreeze to drain out, you need to pull this shroud off. And what I found is easiest, this clip is a pain in the butt to get unhooked. So what I found is easiest to is just take the hose off here on the radiator and down there on the water pump, because it's got to come off anyway off the pump. That way you can just pull the whole shroud off and the hose will just stay on there. To get the shroud off, there's a bolt on each side right here, and there's one on the other side. That's a 13 millimeter socket to get that off. If you don't have any of these little magnetic trays, they're like worth everything. I got like a dozen of them, so they're nice to keep track of everything, and they're magnetic. So it's worth a couple bucks to get one. Now when you're underneath here, This is the lower shroud, lower part of the fan shroud that can come off. And this is what's going to let you need to remove this. This was going to let you be able to take the upper part of the shroud and slide it up around that fan. So basically there's a couple little details things you got to push just to break this thing loose. Yeah, you take this off. There we go. Now the fan's exposed, and you should be able to pull that from up on top. Now to get that shroud off, you got to get the fan off. I've tried getting this shroud off without removing the fan first, and I've not been successful. So what I'm having to do is get that fan off first, and you got to get that nut that's mounted to the water pump pulley. You got to get that off. So I'll show you what I do here. All right, so that nut down there is the counter. It's a reverse thread, so you're basically what you would normally be tightening it righty tighty. You're going to be going the opposite, so you're going clockwise. So if I can get this down under here, so I take that. Oh, there's. Take the air chisel. I put on that farthest right edge of one of those flat spots. There we go. As that breaks it loose. You can see where I did that last time, but it sure works good. Otherwise, it's tough to try to keep that pulley from trying to break that loose. So anyway, it worked for me. All right, once you get that fan undone, it lowers. You drop it down to that lower portion of the shroud. And so that should free this up to remove the rest of the shroud. All right. All right. Next thing is to get that serpentine belt off. This pulley down here. It's got a place where you can put a ratchet on there. What I use is a breaker bar with a 3/8 adapter on there. Put it down that hole. And you pull it. That gives you the tension off that belt. Just a reminder, I would probably take a picture of this before you take it apart, so you can go back and reference how that pulley was on, or how that belt was on all the pulleys here. Then at this point, probably you want to, if you're going through all this work, inspect your serpentine belt, see if there's any cracks. If you're going to replace it, now's the time to do it. All right, we got the serpentine belt off. So the next thing we need to do is take the remaining hoses off the pump. So we got these 2 heater core hoses here, and we got the lower radiator hose here. So just get everything unclamped, and just a heads up, there's probably still antifreeze in here, so it's probably going to make a mess down below. So that's probably where you put your whatever you're using to try to catch out your antifreeze. Try to get that underneath there for you. All right, those hoses have been on there for a while. So what I ended up doing was using the channel locks. Just grabbing the hose roughly where the straps are, the bands, and breaking them loose that way. Just want to be careful not to damage the hoses so we don't end up with some leaks. Oh, that one's loose. Yeah, it'd be nice if they all came off like that. Anyway, pull them off. And then there's always the actual reality of doing the work yourself. So here's the new pump. So you can kind of see like that bolt does not need to come off. And then you can get a good count and a visual of where the bolts are that you're looking for. Then we'll look at how this gasket goes in when we get to it. But just so you know, I did this water pump like 3 years ago, and I got it O'Reilly, and they had a cheaper one-year warranty, but I opted up for the middle of the road one. It was like 110 or something 3 years ago, and lifetime warranty. So I'm just going to bring this in after I bring the old one in, and they'll give me my money back. So absolutely worth buying the warranty on stuff like this. All right, you're gonna have to take this nut off because this bracket's attached to it. This is a 14 millimeter, and then I believe all the rest on this pump are 13 millimeter. All right, you need to get that coolant sensor unplugged. You pull up on this red piece there, and you push in on that black piece there. There, just unplugs like that. You might as well, when you got the pump still on the motor, that ain't gonna work. You might as well take that tensioner pulley off. That way the motor just kind of helps hold it for you. Set that aside. And then when you're at this point, you might as well check your idler pulley, make sure that doesn't seem froze up or loose, like it maybe needs replacing. Because just like the Serpentine Belt, now's the time to do that. So I took that nut off. I forgot to mention that to get this bracket off, you got to take this bolt off, and that'll free that bracket up so you can get the pump off. There's a nut, or this is like a stud bolt thing here, so you got to get that bracket off to get to that bolt behind there. Right, need to make a correction. This nut that holds that bracket on, I thought it was a 14. It's a 13, just like all the rest of the water pump bolts, except now the stud behind this bracket, why? I don't know, it's a 15 millimeter. So everything's a 13, and the stud is a 15 millimeters. And you have to use a deep well socket probably to reach that, unless you can use like an open wrench or something. All right, the pump is out. Send all the bolts. Fell right out. Now what I recommend, take a piece of cardboard, trace out that pump, and put the bolts, mark where all the bolts will go, because these bolts are all different sizes. I don't know if you can, I don't know, they're short and long and whatever. We want to make sure that we don't forget where those go. I tend to have a short memory. So anyway, just a suggestion. So now we're cleaning up around where the pump goes, and start getting ready to put the pump back in, new pump. All right, here's the pump having been removed. I'll probably just do a little cleanup. You can see there's crap in here and stuff. So anyway, we'll clean that all up and get ready to put the new pump in. Now you got the old water pump. You still got the thermostat housing you need to remove. and exposes your thermostat. Now's the time to probably replace that, as long as you got that apart. And then you got to get this coolant sensor out of there. I don't know if I can do that with this. Remove that, because you got to put that in the new water pump. If you plan on reusing the old thermostat, you can pry it underneath here and pop it out like that. Alright, I put in the new thermostat. Just to note that the water pump I bought does not come with the thermostat or the gasket, so I had to go buy one. So anyway, and then that being said, make sure you clean the surfaces here so we get a good seal and you don't have any leaks. Then you bolt that back on, and we'll go through torque specs in a minute here. All right, putting the coolant sensor in. I put a little bit of sealant in there. As far as how tight, I don't know. I guess that's, I don't know if there's a torque spec for that or not, but just make sure that when you put it in, you got these little clip things sticking up, so that when you put the plug back on, that it's oriented the right direction. All right, we're up to the step putting the gasket in. In this particular water pump, it's this one piece rubber deal. Just a matter of getting it, figuring out which way it wants to fit. Just work your way in and around. Make sure it's seated in there all the way around. You don't want to hang it out in there at all. All right. Thermostat's in, coolant temp sensor's in, gasket's in. I believe we're ready to mount this back onto the engine. All right, the block's been cleaned up. I'm just picking one bolt. I don't know if it really matters. I was picking one just to put in, just to hang it. All right, so I'll go through, put the rest of the bolts on, and then we'll get the torque in them. All right, on these water bolts, water pump bolts, this one, it had the bracket on it, and I believe it's this one. These two actually go into the water jacket, and I could see where they'd been wet. So you want to put sealant on these two. At least this is what I've read online, and according to the water stains on here, it indicates that that's true. The rest of them all look like they've been dry, like they didn't have the rust where they've been sitting in water. So I'm going to put these two in last and then do all the rest. And then get those two in, then we'll torque them all down. So the two bolts, this is the one that had the nut on it for that bracket. And this one I put some pipe thread on there, or thread sealant, I should say. And I also went and I took a wire brush. I got it on a wheel on a grinder and cleaned it up. I don't know if it's necessary, but I don't know. I did because it's. I figured those threads get kind of gooped up from sitting in the water in there. So anyway, so I'm going to put this last bolt in, and then we'll torque them all. I just thought I'd show you. Let's put some thread sealant on here before I put it in. All right, bolts are all ready to be torqued. Doing research, it looks like the torque specs for these bolts, it said anywhere between 18 and 21. The majority of what I looked at said 21 foot-pounds, so that's what I'm going to go with. I got a typical torque wrench. Someday I'll invest in some nice ones, but these seems to work for most of the stuff I'm doing. I'm going to start with this middle bolt where the bracket was. Now, I couldn't really see anything that said there's a certain bolt pattern as far as tightening them down, but I don't know. I figure it must be like kind of like a head or something. I'm just going to probably alternate and work my way around, just try to get it to make sure it goes on flat. I've never had a problem, you know, as far as having a leak, but maybe it's because I always kind of do it that way. But anyway, so I'm going to go through and just torque them all down, work my way around. 21 foot-pounds is what I'm going to have it set at. So, okay, I went through, torqued them all, worked my way around. I kind of snugged them up first before I started torquing on them, but worked my way around, and it's crazy how they're kind of hidden where you kind of can't really see them. So I ended up using this piece of cardboard where I had the pattern, you know, and at the very end I went through and checked them off as I just double checked that I torqued them just to make sure I didn't miss anything. So the water pump is officially bolted on. We can put the temp thing back on. Put that on, so we'll go through and put the brackets on. We'll do that while I'm sitting here. Get that on. And the nut. So what I was sitting here thinking, I don't know if I had already said it, but now would be the time probably to put the plug back in for the radiator, because you don't have to crawl underneath. The shroud's not there. You can see right where it goes, so you can put that plug back in. So now I'm going to put the tensioner pulley back on, and then I'll also put the hoses on. So as you're putting the tensioner pulley on, you really can't mess it up. You get the bolt in place, it's got a little stub sticking out, and as you tighten it up, it locks it in place. You can't put it on incorrectly. All right, got all the got the 3 hoses on. Nothing really too complicated about that. So now time to put the serpentine belt on. Everything else that at least I can see, I haven't screwed up yet, is on. So I'll put the serpentine belt on, and then we can, I think, get the shroud on. Now when you get the string that serpentine belt on, I work it all the way around, get around the tensioning pulley, and then leave it loose up here, so you're not trying to hook it up somewhere down below as you're trying to take the tension off. There we go. Make sure you're on all the pulleys fully and not, you know, on one of these ridges or something. There we go. All right. I think we can put the shroud on and get these remainder Get this remainder water radiator hoses put on. All right, when you're putting the shroud back on, you got the two bolts, but the bottoms, which you probably saw when you took it out, whoa, hooks in these little slots on the bottom. So you got to make sure you get those in. The top should drop in too. All right, then we can get the radiator hoses back on. All right, so I'll do that clamp there, and then go underneath and work on getting that fan onto the water pump pulley. That's probably one of the biggest pain in the butt. But anyway, that's what's next. Getting the fan on wasn't actually too bad of a deal. I couldn't remember. Just remember it's a reverse thread, otherwise you're going to find yourself fighting trying to get that thing on. So anyway, I got the fan on, and then I used the air chisel just to snug it up. And then the last thing underneath here is that bottom section of that shroud needs to get snapped in place. And I think we're ready to put some antifreeze in here. Well, it's running, and I don't see any leaks anywhere. Not that you could see it from here, but now it's just a tedious process of filling the antifreeze back in. I'm just waiting for it to heat up a little bit so that thermostat will open up. But if you guys reuse any of your antifreeze, I'd probably filter it before you put it back in. So anyway, I guess that's the end of this. The whole point of the video was just to try to minimize you guys having to wait through a whole video of someone doing it without editing anything. So I hope this helped somebody. Next project, exhaust manifold bolts. Thanks.